Hey everybody, it's Josh with Dara Holsters. In one of my previous videos I went through my rifle and my kit, and some of you wanted to see my radios and electronics setup. So in this video we're going to go through all of my radios and electronics case. The first thing I'll start with is the case itself. This is like a Pelican case. It was a cheaper version of a Pelican, but it's waterproof and like drop resistant, things like that. I mounted a light in the top of it so I can see things at night. So the first thing I'll get into is my radios themselves. I have a couple different options. Well, I'll start with the cheapest option first. So the Baofeng UV-5R, this was my first radio that I got. It works for what it is. It's definitely a cheap radio, $20 to $30 on Amazon. It only does analog transmission, receiving, things like that. But it is dual band, so I can receive and transmit in UHF and VHF. This radio gets a lot of hate because of what it is. I think they're good for what they do. If you don't have a radio at all and you want to start getting into radio, this is a really good option. They're cheap. I can hand them out to someone else if I need to. If I lose it or it breaks, I'm only out like 30 bucks. I'm not too worried about it. I do have the extended battery on these. I have 3 of these in here with the antennas in the case. I keep the antennas off just so I can close the case without having to lay them flat. I can store them vertically like this. The next radio after that is the Uence the HD1. This is the HD1. They now have a new version, the HD2. It's just the updated version of this. This radio can transmit and receive on analog and digital. So this is a DMR radio. I can transmit and receive on UHF and VHF. This particular radio can also send and receive text messages. It can send and receive GPS signal from where your current location is, and the radio that you're receiving from, you can receive their GPS location. They're waterproof. These are pretty nice radios. This is a little bit more expensive than a Baofeng. They work pretty good for what they are. I do have spare batteries for everything, so I have extra batteries for these, I have extra batteries for Baofengs and everything else. So the next radio I'll go over is the EF Johnson 5100. This is stepping up to a much higher quality, like I guess duty rated kind of radio. This is what was issued to a lot of like police departments and things like that. These were heavily used for things like that. These particular ones are in the UHF band, so it can only send and receive in the UHF band, but these are super durable, they're waterproof. They're also capable of encryption. So my higher end radios, I call these higher end, they have AES 256 encryption on them. I have a key loader just for that and a computer to program all this stuff, and I'll get to that just in a minute. But I keep extra batteries just for these radios as well. I've got basically 2 batteries for every radio I have. These ones work really nice. They used to be readily available on eBay. They're getting a lot harder to find now. Everybody keeps buying them up, so they're kind of sought after a little bit. I prefer the Motorola myself, but I do have 2 of these and they work very well. And as for my batteries, when I charge my batteries, this is a little thing that just for me that I do. As soon as I'm done charging a battery, I'll put one of these little sticker dots on it and I'll write the date that it was charged. And when I use this battery, I'll take the sticker off, put it in the radio and use it. So that way I know if there's a battery without the sticker, I know when I'm done doing whatever I need to do, anything without a sticker gets recharged, a new sticker gets put on with the current date and put back in the case. And then I'll also go back through and check, usually monthly or just whenever I go in the case, see if there's any batteries that haven't been charged in a while. and I'll go ahead and recharge them, put a new sticker on with the date, and put them back in the case. Also, if you didn't know, the E.F. Johnson and the Motorola XTS 5000 radios, they both use the same battery. This is an E.F. Johnson brand battery, but this will also work in my Motorola XTS 5000. So the last radio I have is the Motorola XTS 5000. This is my primary radio. I use this one more than any of the others. This is also a UHF radio, only send and receive in UHF. This does have AES 256 encryption on it, just like the E.F. Johnson. So this radio plus the E.F. Johnson's plus anybody else that I've programmed their radio with the keys, we can all talk with each other on encrypted channels. It'll transmit on regular analog, digital, and the digital with the encryption as well. This is my preferred radio. And we get a lot of questions about what radio should I buy. Just go ahead and tell me the radio to buy and just be done with it. That question, it leads to more questions. What are you going to do with the radio? Do you have other people you can talk to with your radio? If you don't have anybody to talk to, buying the most expensive, nicest radio isn't really gonna do any good. If you've never bought a radio or never used a radio, I recommend the Baofeng. It's cheap. You can learn programming a little bit on there using the chirp software that comes with those radios. You can hand out one to your buddy when you guys are out camping or doing whatever. Hand one to your wife, your friend, and just get used to talking and using a radio. If you've already used radios and you're looking for something nicer, those Uences are really nice. There's a lot of other DMR radios that are also really nice. And then on the higher end, you can go to the Motorola's, the E.F. Johnson's. Harris makes some pretty good radios, but just know that the price climbs pretty quickly once you start getting into higher quality stuff. All right, so the next thing I'll get into is my headsets and how I use my radios to communicate. So I use MSA Sordin headsets. This one is the Sordin Supreme, the Pro X. It does have an aftermarket microphone. It's a little bit cheaper. It just clips onto the side of the headset and plugs into the back. My other headset that I use is also MSA Sordin, but this is the dual lead version, like the higher end version. It's got the microphone built in, and it has the dual lead, so I can talk into two different radios at the same time, or two different radios while wearing this one headset. So to talk into the headsets and the radios, I use the PTT, the push-to-talk. I use the Nexus U94 push-to-talks that I get from Disco 3.2. They work really well. These are kind of like the military style push-to-talks, and they accept the NATO plug from my headsets. One thing you do have to be aware of, and I just learned this recently from a Disco 3.2 video, was that with your headsets, these two headsets use two different microphones. The built-in microphone on this one, the more professional higher end set, is a dynamic microphone. The one on this, it's like an aftermarket plug-in one. It's called an electret microphone. These two work very differently. The dynamic microphone, it'll suppress a lot of unwanted noise, whether it's vehicles or gunfire, things like that. They work really well for doing that. These electret microphones, they'll kind of take in any noise that's around. So they're a lot cheaper to make, they're a lot cheaper to buy, but they're not as high quality as something like the dynamic. But when you do use these, you have to keep in mind which push-to-talk you're using. So the dynamic microphones need what's called an amped push-to-talk. So it amplifies the sound coming in, or the electric signal coming into the radio, so you can talk through these. If you use the wrong one, if you use the non-amped one on this, you'll be able to hear, but when you talk into the microphone, no one else will hear you. Same thing with the electret microphone. If you use the amped version of the PTT with this and not the non-amped version, the same thing will happen. You'll be able to hear everyone, but when you hit the push to talk and talk in your microphone, no one will be able to hear you. I have both versions of the push to talks for every radio that I have, except for the Baofeng. I don't use push to talks for that. But I mark on these clearly in paint pen, non-amped for the electret or the lower end headset, and then the amped version for my higher end dynamic microphone set. All right, so the next thing I'll talk about is the electronics portion of my case. We went over the radios, went over how I talk through the radios, my headsets and things like that. I'll get into a little bit of the electronics. So one of the electronics that I have is a Flipper Zero. If you've seen these before, you may have heard some things. They're not as incredible as everybody thinks they are. They do some really cool stuff. They can capture signals of some devices and replay those signals. They can capture cards and emulate those cards. So like a key card for a door, if this is capable, it can read a key card for a door. You can emulate that key card and get access to that door without having the actual card with you. It could also, some credit cards, it can scan some of those credit cards, store that information, and replay that credit card number to a credit card machine. So this is to be used for lawful purposes only. The next thing I'll show you is, this is just a regular Android phone. I'm not sure exactly what model this one is. This is my old phone that I used to use before I got my new one. On the back of this phone, I have a RTL-SDR. So SDR is software defined radio. I 3D printed a case to put it in and velcroed it to the back of this phone, so it's always connected to this. With the SDR on the back of this device, I can plug it into the phone, and using the software I have in here, it's SDR Plus is the app I have on this phone. I can listen to a tremendous amount of radio traffic, all the way down HF band, all the way up to the 700, 800, 900 megahertz bands, and I have everything in between. This works really good if I know what I'm looking for. If there's a certain radio frequencies I know to monitor and things like that, I can listen to it with this, and all I have to do is take one of these antennas and clip it onto the back here. So now I have a handheld radio listening device. This works really well for a bunch of things. I also use this with ADS-B exchange, so I can monitor airplane traffic in the area. Basically, all airplanes use a transponder, and you can pick up that transponder with the RTL-SDR and using the ADS-B software, and you can see the airline traffic in your local area. After that, I've got one of these. So this is the SDR Stick. This was by Terminal Armament. I was one of the lucky enough ones to order early and actually receive mine. So inside this is 2 SDR sticks. That's basically all it is. It's just connecting 2 SDR sticks into one device, and you'll put antennas on this side and this side, so it's a dual antenna. And then there's a cable that connects from here to your computer, so you can listen to multiple bands at the same time, or trunked radio. Trunk radio is what most emergency services use nowadays. Talking about trunked radio and listening to emergency services and other stuff like that, I have what I believe is the best option for that. This is a Uniden SDS 100. So these are kind of pricey, but this is a scanner. So this can scan all of the local police or fire or EMS or marine traffic. It can scan a tremendous amount of radio signals, and I can listen to all that stuff. It also it'll listen to trunked radio from the local police and things like that, so I can hear all the local police traffic. So this thing works extremely well. There's a really easy programming function here where you put in your zip code, and it'll automatically load from its database that's inside here all of the frequencies for your area. And then you could scan through and pick and choose which type of radio signals you want to receive. If you want to receive the air band from air traffic control, if you want to receive fire and EMS, police only, things like that. It's very user-friendly and it works extremely well. There's also a GPS receiver that you can plug into this. So if you're traveling, you can plug in this GPS receiver, put it in your car, and it will automatically update your current location and the scanning of that location without you having to touch anything. So as you move from county to county and state to state, it'll automatically update its location, its zip code, and its local PD, state, county, things like that. So if you wanted to listen to the police traffic in the area that you're traveling through, this can do it automatically for you. These are kind of expensive, but I do think it's worth the price. All right, the last thing I'll go over is my laptop and what I use to program radios and all the other stuff, or listen to radio. So in here, I've got a Panasonic Toughbook. I bought this used, and when I received it, I removed all of the Wi-Fi stuff from this. So this can no longer receive Wi-Fi. It cannot, or has not since I've owned it, been connected to the internet. It sounds a little paranoid, I know, but this is basically what they call an air-gapped computer. It cannot access the internet. So there's no antennas to receive or transmit from this computer. Inside this computer, I have a bunch of different softwares for programming the radios. I have one software for the Motorola's, I have one software for the E.F. Johnson's, another one for the Uence, and another one for the Baofeng, and those are only for programming. So also in this Toughbook, I have the SDR software to use with the SDR Stick and some of my other software-defined radio devices. I use that to listen to a bunch of different radio traffic in the area, hear what normal radio traffic sounds like, maybe something that's not normal to the area. I can also record with the software that I use as well. So I can record and play back. If I needed to for any reason, I could record and transmit that played back recording through a radio. I don't really ever need to use that, but it is a thing that I can do. Also with the SDR software, I can, using the SDR stick and the software, I can listen to trunk radio. So I can listen to the control channel, and then I can listen to the transmit channels that the control channel kind of goes through. So that's kind of what I use the Toughbook for. I also use it for encrypting my radios. So to encrypt the higher end radios that I have, you need a key fill device. So this is a KFD shield inside of a 3D printed case. This will allow me to encrypt my radios with AES 256 encryption. To use this device, you need to have the KFD shield, which is inside here. There's also an Arduino Uno connected to the shield. Everything's inside of this case. You need the cable to go from the shield or the Arduino to the computer, which is like a printer type cable, like a USB type B. And then you need a TRS to high rose cable. And then the high rose cable goes to the key fill adapter, the key loader adapter. This is the part that actually connects to the radio itself. This is a genuine Motorola part. I got this specifically just for key loading. I didn't want to get like I bought some of the super cheap ones on eBay and Amazon that say they're key loading devices. They're not, they don't work. If you want a key load, you need the actual Motorola key loading adapter. And I've also modified this to use with my E.F. Johnson. So if you need to modify, or if you have an E.F. Johnson radio and you want to load keys to it, you have to open this up and you have to solder two of the pins together, put it back together, and then it'll work with your E.F. Johnson radio. I did have an issue for a while of trying to load keys and it wouldn't load. The screen on the radio would come up, it would flash key loading and then go away, and it would flash key loading and go away. And I struggled with that problem for quite a while, and what it ended up being was the cable itself. I had to get the cable from omahacomms.com, and that solved all of my issues. So if you do run into that problem, know that it's most likely the cable itself. Also, the KFD shield came from Omaha Comms. As of the filming of this video, they are out of stock. They're kind of hard to find now. If you can get your hands on one, great, but if you try to go to Omaha Comms, they just don't have them anymore. Something else I use with my computer is a 1 terabyte hard drive. On this hard drive, I have all the software that I needed in case something happened to this, or if I wanted to load the software to another computer. All of my key loading software and my radio programming software is on this. I also have all of Wikipedia downloaded on this as well. So if I needed to reference any information from Wikipedia for any reason, I don't have to connect to the internet with this. I can just look at everything on here. So another device that I have is an SWR meter. So SWR stands for Standing Wave Ratio. Basically, it measures the effectiveness of your antenna for your radio. So what this does is this side goes into the radio, your antenna goes on this side, and when you transmit, it will read out a number of how well your antenna is transmitting. You can also see if the antenna is backfeeding into your radio. It basically just measures how well your antenna works. So some other things I have in here are some extra antennas. I have all the stock antennas that came with the radios, but I do have a couple flexible whip antennas. This one's just a 3-foot flexible whip. This one has a gooseneck on it, so if I needed to move it in any direction, it would flex and it would stay there. These antennas do not work that well when they're folded. You really have to unfold them to get the most out of these. So if I needed to transmit a little bit farther, I can unfold this radio and transmit out and reach out to whoever I need to. The problem I've run into with these is when you have these mounted onto the radio on your plate carrier, it sticks up like this even when it's folded. The way I've got around that is on my kit, and I explained it a little bit in that video, is I use a cattail antenna. It's a flexible antenna that I use. That way I can plug into my radio and it routes through my plate carrier and I don't have an antenna sticking up in my face all the time. All right, so that's it for my communications electronics case. If you have any questions, put them down in the comments or reach out to support@daraholsters.com. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook, and we'll see you in the next one.